It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Hi Gary, this is Hy Feldblum, and I want to congratulate you on your retirement and thank you for all the amazing research you have done over the years at the Williams Institute to educate us, the public and policymakers about the LGBT community. I particularly want to thank you and commend you for your work on gender identity. You and others developed a best practices guide for measuring gender identity, and based on that work, the California Health Interview Survey, for the first time, included a gender identity measurement in its 2015-2016 survey. That's huge. It's the first time a large population-based survey included such a measurement, and it was because of your solid research. So, on behalf of all of us who have worked on advancing LGBT civil rights, I want to thank you and commend you for the research and work and perseverance over the years. As they say in New York City, Gary, you the best.
Gary Gates of Seattle, chicken, pepper cash.
Yeah, well, when I was a kid, actually, we called it paprikash.
Hi everybody, I am really sorry I can't be there in person, but I am very happy to get to say a few nice things about Gary. I first met Gary back in the 1990s at a conference in Pittsburgh. I think it was Creating Change. When I think back on it, I feel sort of like I was being set up on a blind date by some really clever friends. I'll never forget walking in and meeting Gary. He had that big beautiful grin on his face that we often see. And we had a great time completely geeking out, talking about census data. And I always still will think about numbers when I think about Gary. The only other numbers that I ever heard him get so passionate about compared to census data, one was the number of press hits that he would get. He was very excited about that. And the other, of course, he is famous for his love of frequent flyer miles and counting those up. But for all of that, the fancy shirts, the frequent flyer miles and crazy trips that he takes, the New York Times press hits, the lovely Seattle house, really at his core, Gary is still an ordinary old-fashioned guy from Johnstown, PA. And I think that's really why we're going to miss him so much. Gary, we are all so grateful for you, for the work that you've done. We're so impressed by all that you've accomplished. And I'm glad to say, of course, it will live on. But as a colleague, I will miss you terribly. As a friend, though, I do look forward to trying out some of those new recipes that I hope you'll be working on. I hope you will have fun tonight. Enjoy your well-earned accolades. And Elizabeth and I just want to wish you all the best.
Gary! Congratulations!
Every 10 years, our country does a census of its entire population. And every 10 years, new groups seek to have their voices heard. For the first time in the country's history, in the 2010 census, we've tabulated the LGBTQ community populations reflecting their true status. Gary Gates was a lightning rod in alerting the government to the need to do this, to make sure large portions of the population that formerly were invisible became visible. For this reason, the country is in his debt, and I thank him for all his work. I wish him all the best in the future.
For more on that, we bring in Gary Gates. He's a distinguished scholar from UCLA Law School's Williams Institute, also the co-author of The Gay and Lesbian Atlas. Gary, it's great to have you on with me, and I know we had a chance to sit on a panel together recently and talk about this data.
I can't be there in person, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to pay tribute to you, Gary. Brad was very strict with me. He said, you can't talk for more than 90 seconds, and you can't talk about marriage, because our friend Mary Bonato is going to cover that. So I want to talk about how you, demolished the Regnerus study. You pulled together the data. The research that you and others have developed over the years showing that we are fit and loving parents and our children are growing up happy, healthy, and well-adjusted, and that this argues for the freedom to marry, not against it. But you didn't just stop with the data. You figured out how to get it in the hands of 200 scholars whom you convened and pulled together on a letter to put this in front of the journal, in front of the courts, and in front of the public. You gave us the basis for having organizations, key organizations, mental health, public welfare, child welfare, medical associations, repudiate this so-called study. And ultimately, you gave us what we needed so that we could go into court and have the Michigan trial court, as well as the United States Supreme Court, reject this last-ditch effort. This bore the hallmarks of what you've brought to our movement for so long. Not only serious, smart, cutting-edge scholarship, but a thoughtful, intelligent, and yes, activist figuring out of how to present this in a way that the decision makers, the public, our movement, and ultimately the courts could embrace it and move in the right direction. Gary, for all of this kind of great work over so many years, you will be sorely missed. So thank you, Gary Gates. Thank you for the wonderful work. Thank you for the good friendship. Thank you for the role model. Thank you for the leadership. Thank you for what you've contributed.
Our progress and our victories are based not only on the grand principles of liberty and equality in our state and federal constitutions, they're also based on data that brings to life the reality of LGBT people and families across this nation. And that's where Gary Gates hits the mark time and time again. So for example, in the Perry and Windsor cases at the Supreme Court in 2013, Justice Kennedy from the bench actually cited the amici brief of Gary Gates for the proposition that there are hundreds of thousands of same-sex couples raising children, cutting to the core of the argument that somehow it helps kids to deny their parents access to marriage. Again, we can really credit Gary Gates for making so real and so vivid for the court the fact that there are families raising children, same-sex couples raising children, all over this nation. Thank you, Gary, for everything you've done for so many years to help all of us, and we wish you well.
Today, one of the most sweeping civil rights rulings in American history, certainly the biggest gay rights ruling ever in American history. A clear and resonant and easy to understand, blunt declaration by the majority of the court.
For me, certainly on a personal level, the Williams Institute has been this amazing opportunity to use my skills to really be involved in changing people's lives. And that was really brought home for me when I attended the wedding of April DeBoer and Jane Rouse. They were plaintiffs in the Supreme Court marriage cases that brought marriage equality to the whole country.
Sealing their vows with a kiss, April DeBoer and Jane Rouse celebrate the end of a 4-year journey, legally wed in Southfield Saturday afternoon.
Just being able to attend that wedding and see their family and their kids and just how different their lives would be now that they and, you know, hundreds of thousands of other couples could get married in the United States. It really brought home for me how powerful the work that we do can be. It was the first day I arrived here, my first day of work. It was actually raining in LA, and it turned out it was a holiday. It was President's Day. So I showed up and the doors were locked, so I had no way to get into the building because the campus was actually closed. Monday holidays. There was work to be done, so.